world that is one of an endless number of others, but is unlike any other. In this reality, people never had to sleep, which made it a completely different branch of existence. Consciousness never faded from the first breath of life to the last heartbeat. No tiredness, no falling off to sleep, and no giving in to the night. Everything changed because I didn't sleep. Time itself grew. In another dimension, a life that used to last 80 years now had the equivalent of 120, maybe more living hours. The old pattern of day and night broke. Civilizations never longer halted. Cultures were always changing, and cities were like huge hearts that never stopped pounding. At first, it looked like a good thing. Industries moved forward at an unimaginable rate. Art and science grew without delay, and people developed buildings and devices that were beyond the imagination of other worlds. But there was something important missing under the splendor. Dreams, the hidden music that used to speak to people, were gone. And maybe with them, the deepest wells of creativity, imagination, and even sanity. Aaron Dalen knew these things better than other people. He was a historian of realities, one of the few people whose job it was to look into the small cracks that separate universes. For him, Reality 612 wasn't merely a notion stored in a computer. It was alive, it was dangerous, and it was having an effect on people outside of its own borders. He strolled through the steel halls of Orialis, the capital of this world that never sleeps. Above him, huge towers glowed like veins of fire, and every window was always moving. There was no gloom or quiet here. Factories shouted, trains and buses roared, and billions of voices clashed in a never-ending storm. To live in Orialis meant being devoured by eternity, which never stopped. The voice on the overhead speaker said, "Sector 12 expansion complete," in a dull tone. Quantum arcology's output went up by 12%. The Global Council tells people that rest is a sign of weakness. Forward is survival. The slogan was everywhere. Rest is a sign of weakness. It shone across the transit bridges, sparkled in neon above the plazas, and resonated in every broadcast. People here had not just given up sleep. They had waged war on it. The idea of rest had become embarrassing, a sign of a time when people were weaker. Aaron could feel the stress under the surface. He could see it in the eyes of the individuals running by him. Their pupils were wide and unblinking, and their minds were sharp yet fragile. They worked like robots, smart and industrious, but in ways that few people were willing to recognize. They were weak. Some people muttered about the cracks. People who had been awake for decades finally broke. They would sit still in the middle of busy streets, staring at nothing, and their thoughts would stop. CCS, or cognitive collapse syndrome, was the name doctors gave it. People on the streets nicknamed it falling into the void. No one came back after it broke. Aaron had a secret that not many people knew. He had glimpsed pieces of forgotten dreamscapes, echoes from other worlds where sleep still lingered. He saw colors and storylines in those ethereal visions that no artist in Reality 612 could ever make again. He felt in his bones that not sleeping was not a sign of evolution, but a hurt. He was going to the Hall of Continuum, where the Global Council presided. Tonight, or what they still called night even though the streets were full of neon lights. Orialis was everlasting, but that didn't mean it wasn't affected by politics. Changes in power were like storms, abrupt and violent. And suddenly a question was coming up. Was Reality 612 really the end of the world for people? Or was it a trap they had stepped into that took away their soul? Aaron wasn't sure yet, but he wanted to know. The Hall of Continuum was a ring-shaped stronghold of black steel with silver conduits that pulsed with light. It stood above the city like a crown. There were no windows. Its leaders didn't need any. They didn't want to gaze outside. Inside, the council was always arguing, but not about how long they had been there. Instead, they were arguing about outputs, productivity rates, and technological advances. When Aaron walked in, his ID lit up on the scanners, and he felt the usual chill. Above the central chamber, in letters that were on fire, was the council's motto, "Eternity belongs to the awake." Inside, 12 people sat in a circle of glass chairs, their faces pallid from the constant light. None of them appeared older than 40, but Aaron knew that several of them had lived far past 80. Being awake all the time kept the body in weird ways, but it also left something empty in the spirit. "Historian Dalen," a voice said, cutting through the air. "Do you have any new information from your studies of parallel strands?" Aaron nodded his head. "Yes, counselor. I deliver bad news." The room got quiet. People didn't like warnings. Warnings slowed things down, and slowing things down was a sin here. "Speak," another counselor said. Aaron opened his case and showed a dazzling display of data and images, pieces of dreamscapes he had recorded. They were like dreams, oceans turned into skies, mountains bent like paper, and faces turned into stars. The counselors became tense when they saw it. Aaron stated, "These are echoes from places where sleep still exists. Dreams aren't just random thoughts. They are places where creativity, emotional healing, and harmony happen. Cultures may move forward quickly without them, but they may also fall apart. Reality 612 could cause the mind to implode." Whispers filled the room. Some people laughed softly and dismissively. Some people appeared worried. "Dreams?" one counselor said with a sneer. "You tell us fairy tales to warn us? We are stronger than that. Look around, historian. In 200 years, we've built more than sleepers did in 2,000 years. Sleep is not a present. It was a chain." Aaron's voice got sharper. "Then why do we break? Why do thousands of people fall into CCS every year? Why do whole families disappear into quiet, their wits worn out? You are chasing forever, but what if forever is empty? What if people without dreams aren't really people?" The council stopped talking. For a time, the noise of the big metropolis outside appeared to echo inside the room. Aaron could feel the weight of their looks and the anger in their eyes. Finally, the oldest among them spoke. His voice was quiet yet heavy. "Historian, we have taken note of your findings, but keep this in mind. Reality 612 doesn't look back. It only goes forward. Let them burn if dreams are the price we have to pay to stay alive." The meeting was over. Aaron walked outside and the bright light hit his face. His hands shook, not because he was scared, but because he was angry. The council didn't want to hear it. They were too far into their interminable march, but he understood something they didn't. Cracks only get bigger over time. Someday, Reality 612 itself might fall apart, and when that day arrived, only those who still recalled their dreams could rescue it. The city was always awake. Orialis was a contraption built of steel, light, and voices that never went out. Above the streets, hollow banners with phrases like, "Eternity belongs to the awake," burned. The words followed Aaron everywhere he went, cutting like blades. The city had altered when he spoke to the council. People looked at him for longer. Patrol drones got closer and filmed his steps. He could feel the weight of doubt coming from all sides. He spotted the girl then. She sat still on a bench near Sector 12, her eyes wide open but not focused. Her lips moved and she said disjointed bits of words. People walked by without looking. To them, she was already dead, just another victim of collapse. Aaron slowed down. He got down on one knee in front of her. "What's your name?" Her pupils sparkled with brilliance. Not light from outside. Something else. For a moment, a grid emerged, with coordinates carved into her iris. 19 docks, gray on the sub-level. Time is marked for now. Then it was gone. Aaron stopped moving. Someone had sent her a message. He looked around. No one had seen it. He softly caressed her hand and then called for a medical drone. When it got there, he looked away and pulled his collar up. The current of the city moved him. There were no official maps that showed sub-level gray. There were strata of Orialis, with each generation burying the last. Aaron found the secret elevator, typed in the coordinates, and let it fall into the blackness. He stepped into a hallway of concrete and shadow when the doors opened. There was a door with a narrow seam of light at Dock 19, which was at the end. He raised his wrist to say who he was, but the door opened before he could. There was a woman there. No insignia, sharp eyes, and short hair. "You came," she said. "Okay, who are you?" "Lisa Kett. And you are the historian who almost ruined the council today. Come on in." The room beyond felt strange compared to Orialis. The walls were soft, the light was soft, and the air smelled clean. People moved quietly between the consoles and the weird glass tubes. It was quiet here, yet the metropolis above was full of noise. Aaron responded, "You sent the message?" "Yes." "Through the girl. I'm sorry you had to see her that way, but it was the only way to get to you before they locked you in." "What is this place?" Lisa responded, "A sanctuary. A place to fix people's minds." She pointed to one of the glass tubes. There were wires wrapped around it and a crown of clear nodes dangled from the top. Inside, faint motes floated around like stars that had been caught, she said. "It's called an interface. It gives people back what this world took." Aaron got closer. "Sleep? Not sleep, intervals. After 10 minutes inside, the brain resets itself. Memories get sorted, feelings calm down, and sometimes dreams come true." Aaron's chest felt tight. "You've put back together what the world lost." Lisa's eyes were calm. "We fixed what the council broke." CCS isn't a sign of weakness, historian. It's hunger. And this is food. The walls trembled before Aaron could answer. A harsh, frigid bell rang out in the room. There was a hollow banner on the far wall with the council's seal on it. Continuum Act. It is illegal to use neural devices without a license. Voluntary surrender starts right away. Not following the rules is a crime. Being weak is resting. Fraud is intervals. The room sprang to life. Panels slid shut, machines folded into the walls, and consoles turned off. They had practiced this before. They've been waiting, Aaron added. Lysa said. They were waiting for you. The floor shook again. A secret device made a humming sound. The whole dock shook and then started to move. Aaron got ready, she said. We're going down. Under the city, to a place that Orialis can't get to. The walls of Dock 19 closed, transforming the chamber into a transport sled. The lights turned blue and got dimmer. The feeling of movement went away, but the map on the screen showed them falling into the ground, leaving the city behind. Aaron put his hand on the glass of the cylinder. His skin felt warm. For a brief period, a picture formed in his mind. A field, the sound of a lullaby, and the wind blowing through long grass. He staggered back, shaken. What was that? Lisa said. Proximity effect. The interface doesn't make things up. It shows, even when you're merely close to it. The sled came to a stop. The doors led to a huge cave. Light from rigs attached to the ceiling flooded down, lighting on rows and rows of interfaces. Not a lot. A lot. Engineers, medics, and families with bright, alert eyes waited there. Some people wore ancient uniforms without any badges. Some people appeared like regular people who had been pulled off the street. They made something that the city had forgotten, a community. An older man stepped up, his face tired yet solid. I am Hadian. I made the first interface for my grandson. The council branded him sluggish when his brain started to break. But he wasn't lazy. He was going to drown. The interface saved him. Aaron bent down. And now they say you're criminals. Hadian gave a weak smile. Reality 612 already said I was out of date. I like criminal better. Lisa looked at Aaron. We need to hear from you. People trust historians more than rebels. You saw what went down in the council chamber. You shook them up. People will listen if you talk now. Aaron peered around the cave at the shining cylinders that looked like glass trees and the calm faces that were full of both hope and terror. He thought of the girl in Sector 12 whose mind was going out. He thought about the council's harsh rules. He got up on a platform that was higher up. A lens was aimed upon him. Aaron Dalen is this, he remarked. His voice boomed through the tunnel and then rocketed up through hidden channels into the city above. People stopped sleeping in Reality 612. We got more hours. We got faster, but we lost our balance. We lost the dreams that made us who we are. He stopped, and his chest rose with each word. I'm not telling you to go back. Please stop for a moment. 10 minutes. A break that restores the psyche. A break that gives you back what the council took. If your thoughts keep going in circles, if your child's eyes blink, or if you feel like you're going to break, come to us. Look for breaks. This isn't weak. This is how to stay alive. The feed stopped. The cave was quiet. The walls trembled again, this time more strongly. The tunnel above fell down with a loud noise. There was a lot of dust falling. The city was trying to hide them, but people on the street had already heard Aaron's voice. Men and women had stopped working for a time up there. They tilted their heads because they heard words they had never heard before. Breaks. The revolt had started. The city of Orialis didn't stop, but it shook. The council took down Aaron's comments less than an hour after they were posted, replacing them on every public screen with the well-known saying, Eternity belongs to the awake, but something stayed in the gaps between messages. People murmured to each other in crowded subways. Workers looked at each other throughout long shifts. And kids asked questions their parents didn't know how to answer. Reality 612 had the term intervals in its blood. The council tower flared white high above. Inside, alarms rang out in neat streams of red letters on the walls. There was no noise in the room except for the continuous ticking of system resets. The counselors sat in their glass chairs, their eyes showing the failure they wouldn't admit out. Loud. He got to 23 sectors before the block, one person stated. 78,000 confirmed. Views, another person said. Thousands of people have already been flagged for exposure. There will be ripple effects in the cycle. The oldest counselor leaned forward and put his fingers together. His voice was sharp, yet his face appeared serene. Exposure is pollution. We can't let pollution spread. What do you mean? Calibration did not work. Containment didn't work. Now we erase. The word hung in the room like smoke. Aaron came out of the interface below the city, breathing heavily but steadily. The first break had shaken him up, with pictures that were more real than memories. But he was clear-headed. No loops, no sound. For the first time, silence had a form. Lisa stood there waiting. The word is already getting out. The council is in a panic. They'll come harder, Aaron replied. They always do, she said. They moved through the cave, past rows of interfaces that looked like guards. Families gathered nearby, waiting for their turn and observing him with wary optimism. Aaron could see it in their faces. The need for peace, the dread of punishment, and the need for something the council wouldn't say. A woman who was older than him touched his sleeve. Her eyes were keen and clear. I saw it, she said. The sky. With letters. Have other people seen it? Aaron thought about it. Yes, what did it mean? He didn't say anything. Not yet. Soldiers in black armor poured through the transit spines on the outside. They moved quickly, and their helmets had a single red stripe that glowed. People moved out of the way as they passed. There were official announcements all around. Voluntary surrender of unauthorized devices starts now. Tell Continuum Authority about any suspicious activity. Fraud is intervals. Don't fall asleep. Be loyal. But fear whispered behind the voices. People in small groups met in alleys and repeated what they had heard. A man who worked in a factory said he felt at peace just hearing the word. A woman on a train talked about a dream she had never had, as if the message itself had opened up something that had been hidden. The council couldn't erase memories. Lisa looked at the feed with squinted eyes in the cave. We bought some time, but not a lot. They will dig deeper. They'll come here, Aaron remarked. Then we need more than whispers. We need proof. You've already shown them proof. Not enough. They'll claim I made it up. They'll say I'm sick. Lisa tilted her head. What's next? Aaron glanced at the rows of interfaces, and the light inside them changed like stars in the sky. We take this up top. We don't run away. We installed an interface in the midst of Orialis, and no one can refute it. The cave got quiet. Hadian, the older man, shook his head. You'd be dead before it turned on, Aaron answered. Not if we hurry. Not if the city itself is our witness. Lisa looked at him. You're not a soldier. You are a historian, Aaron replied. History is just memory carved in stone. The council will write it for us if we don't act immediately. The council got ready above. Troop carriers were sent out into the streets. Surveillance grids got tighter, and dark clouds of drones flew over every plaza. People were told to keep working to avoid false pauses. Screens showed warnings about criminal networks disseminating false ideas. But in the middle of Orialis, a woman stopped using her machine. She closed her eyes for a moment. Her coworker saw it but was bewildered. The woman said one word in a whisper. Intervals. The coworker said it again. And the chain started over. Aaron, Lisa, and a few others put one of the smaller interfaces on the sled. It was hidden in plain steel, which made it look like an industrial pipe. They sealed it, covered it, and got it ready for shipping, Lisa remarked. We'll go through Sector 9. The markets there are too. Busy for quick containment. It will turn on before they can. Stop us if we put the interface in the plaza, Aaron nodded. And what happens when it turns on? Once it activates, Hadian added, people will feel what you felt. 10 minutes will erase 10 years of noise. The council has the power to refuse stories. They can't say no to stillness. Aaron touched the steel case. The warmth flowed through it in a steady, patient way. He remembered how the wind bent grass and how letters looked in the sky. 612 is not fate. He spoke it quietly, but no one heard. The sled rose again and took them to the city. The cave was lost in darkness. The vehicle made a humming sound, but it was quiet and swift. Aaron's thoughts was a rhythm of stress. He didn't want to fight. He wasn't even a troublemaker. But there he was, wielding the first weapon Orialis had seen in hundreds of years. Quiet itself. The sled came to a stop. The doors led to the bottom of Sector 9. Above them, voices erupted, traders yelled, and neon lights lit up the sky in every color. Lisa was in charge. Aaron and 2 other people carried the interface. It was heavy but well-balanced. They moved into the crowd and were swept away by the current. The sirens went off after that. Drones fell from the skies, their crimson sensors scanning the plaza. All citizens stay where you are, said voices that came from hidden speakers. There are devices that aren't allowed. Compliance is required. There was a wave of panic. The crowd pushed and fell. Aaron felt the interface slide through his fingers. Lisa held it still, her jaw hard. They know, she replied. Aaron looked around, breathing quickly. The soldiers pushed through the crowds, their black armor shining. The crowd split up, leaving space. The soldiers moved forward. Lisa looked into his eyes. "Now, historian." Aaron got down on one knee and opened the steel case. The interface shone from inside and tiny particles moved around like stars in a jar. People in the crowd gasped. The soldiers yelled. Drones locked onto him. He pushed the button on the crown. Light came out in a steady stream, not too bright. Like a heartbeat that was bigger than life, a pulse ran through the plaza. People stopped moving. There was silence, and then one by one the faces transformed. Unclenched jaws. Shoulders down. Eyes softened. People in Orialis felt calm for the first time in their lives. The soldiers weren't sure what to do. Aaron could see that their stances were weak even through their helmets. One of them let go of his gun. Another one swayed like it was dizzy. The interface buzzed, and the air became thicker with something that couldn't be seen but was definitely there. The plaza was not a market anymore. It was a dream come true. Aaron looked up. The council's creed blazed across the hollow banners. For a moment, the words turned into static, and in the silence, a new word came to be. Intervals. The quiet only lasted a few seconds. The drones yelled and shot suppression waves. The soldiers got their grasp back and charged forth, but the seed had already been planted. People yelled, not out of fear, but out of anger. Intervals! The word rang through the square, getting louder and louder. Lisa took hold of Aaron's arm. "We can't hold it. Get out of the way." But Aaron stayed still. As soldiers closed in as the mob surged, he maintained his hand on the interface. His pulse raced with the weight of what was going to happen. The council could delete broadcasts. They could make tunnels fall down. They could kill, but they couldn't stop the stillness once they heard it. Sirens turned the plaza into one painful sound. The interface surged again and then calmed, its glass heart breathing light. Aaron held his hand on the casing as if it were a live entity. Soldiers closed in quickly, their boots pounding the stone and their visors down. Lisa yelled for him to move, but he didn't. The sound wall hit first, sending a wave of pressure that was supposed to make people kneel. The interface's hum met it and smoothed it out, and for 3 heartbeats the pressure faded like fog in the light. People in the crowd looked up. A woman laughed, ragged and shocked, as if a knot in her chest had come undone by accident. Then the second attack happened. Electromagnetic needles flicked at any device that wasn't allowed. The interface wavered, darkened, and battled back. Aaron felt the earthquake through the casing and moved his weight to protect the crown with his body. A soldier got to him first. He was bigger than the rest, had a scratched helmet, and the margins of his rank strip were charred from an earlier fire. He grabbed Aaron's jacket and raised a fist. The visor looked like a little moon because it reflected the light from the interface. The soldier wasn't sure what to do. His hand shook. Aaron could see his eyes through the thin black film. They were bloodshot and excessively bright, and they looked like a man who hadn't been silent since he was a child. The fist didn't hit the ground. The soldier's chest hitched once, twice, and then he moved back like someone had pushed him. Another soldier pushed him aside and took his place. "Stand down," she said sharply, her voice flat inside the mask. "Protocol." Aaron carefully raised both hands and talked to her above the clamor. He said, 10 minutes, no drugs, no giving up. You'll be able to think clearly again." She didn't respond. The butt of her gun hit him in the ribs. He went to the side but didn't let go of the case. Lisa ducked down low and locked the soldier's leg in a fast rotation. The guy fell, and Lisa was already tugging Aaron away, both of them dragging the interface by its handles. Drones flew down in a tight spiral, their red lenses flashing. The throng split apart and surged, not in a panic this time, but with a purpose. People opened pathways with their bodies to lead Aaron and Lisa to the shade of the market awnings. "North Stair," someone yelled. A fruit seller pushed his cart in front of a drone. The drone scraped metal, broke fruit, and skidded into another one. The silent wave from the interface flowed out again, this time thinner, but it was still enough to slow the men down for a breath. That breath turned into a hallway. Lisa and Aaron ran. They hit the steps hard. The interface was heavy and hard to use at times, and Aaron's side throbbed where the rifle had hit him. But the handles were strong, and the hum in the case helped him hold on. A banner above them snapped and reissued in a flash. "Eternity belongs to the awake." A child on the landing looked at the letters, then the interface, and then back at the lettering. He spoke at intervals, and the word bounced off the pavement like a pebble in a canyon, small but impossible to get back. Soldiers spread out to block them at the top. Lisa turned right toward a service hatch that was the same gray as the wall. She hit the plate with her palm. Nothing. She tried again. The plate lit up red. "They changed the codes," she replied. Her breathing kept steady. "We go through them." Aaron looked down the small path ahead. There were 4 troops in a line, drones flying above and guns set up. The buzz inside the interface stopped for a moment, then came back. He moved before he could figure out what they were up against. He walked right down the middle of the steps without running or flinching. The troops aimed their guns. The finger of the one in front got tighter. The interface pulsed in a low note that sounded like it hit bone. The arms of the soldier in front relaxed. Not much, but enough for Lisa to turn left, grab Aaron's belt with one hand, and pull him behind a pillar as the first volley burnt the air where their heads had been. Smoke. Yells. The scent of fried circuits in color. Someone cried out. Aaron bit down a curse and felt the interface's hum go back into his chest. He had been wrong about the city. It wasn't a machine. It was a living thing that glowed in the dark and looked like steel. Now it was twitching in response to something new. They broke into the street. Traffic was at a standstill. Cars were locked down by emergency measures, and those on the sidewalks held their breath as if being still would make them invisible. A woman with oil-stained hands stepped up and opened the side door of a maintenance truck. "Inside," she replied, not looking at them but at the line of armored figures coming down the steps. Lisa pushed the interface in. Aaron went up after it. The door closed with a bang. The driver dropped the manual clutch and yelled at the van until it listened. They went through a maze of service roads that were too tiny for the drones to follow. The inside of the vehicle smelled like lemons and metal shavings. The driver watched the mirrors the whole time. She said, "My name is Mara. My child heard the show. She had been stuttering for months. You said 10 minutes? Her voice caught and stayed steady. "You're going to give her 20. Lisa responded. "We will." And Aaron could feel it in his teeth. He held the interface steady with his knees as the van hit a curb and went through a yellow gate just before it closed. The metropolis behind them roared. The service lanes led to the river spine, a sparkling ribbon that was used for shipping and water reclamation. Mara parked the van in the shade of the bridge and turned off the motor. "Get off here," she said. "South Arches have pockets that are hard to see. You have 2 minutes before the grid changes." Aaron touched the steel shell once to verify the temperature and listen for the hum's steadiness. It was clean now, but not as strong. Lisa looked at the crown contacts and then closed the lid again. They slipped out into the dark. Mara leaned over and looked at Aaron for the first time, really stared, as if she were trying to remember a face that the city may erase. "Meet us on the 4th ring when it's safe," she said. "The old park with the fake trees. We will bring the kids." Then she drove away, merging back into traffic as if she had always been there and would always be. 2 minutes under the arches felt like a long time. Aaron thought of letters appearing in a sky he'd never seen, and how the word destiny had felt like a door closing as he watched the light scatter on the river. Lisa tapped his forearm once and pointed. A group of troops on the other side of the river moved in a straight line, their heads moving in a synchronized arc. One of them, the big one with the scorched rank strip, paused as if he could feel something through the helmet. He moved his head toward the arches, but he didn't completely look at them. Lisa nodded to the left and tightened her grasp on the handle. They went. They walked through alleys that looked like veins, brushed against walls that were still warm from machines that had cooled down 10 years ago, and slid by a sleeping crane that was dreaming of lifting something it could never finish. They ducked scanners twice by stepping into the interface's hum and letting it obscure their shapes for a moment. They froze entirely while 2 drones fought in, blips and lost sync for a split second that people could exploit but robots couldn't forgive. The room that was supposed to be safe wasn't. It was a storage bay in a stadium that was only half decommissioned. The city used to hold productivity awards there, but then it learnt not to stop even to laud itself. There were already a dozen individuals there. 2 doctors, a teacher whose hands shook till the interface crown touched her temples, and her shoulders sank an inch from her ears. A boy with a shaved head and eyes that looked too old for his body sat on a crate and watched everything. Hadion came out of the darkness as if he had been made there. "You took the street," he remarked. "Good." "We took a breath," Lisa stated as she opened the case. The hum came back, gentle as the tide. Aaron helped her sit down, a man whose pupils shook like fine print on faulty glass. The man glanced up 10 minutes later and tried to say sorry to everyone for everything he had said in the prior 6 months. At the same time, the teacher smiled and sobbed. The boy on the container stayed still. Aaron crouched down next to him. He asked, "Do you want to try?" The youngster said, "I want to remember what my mom's voice sounds like," but he didn't look at him. "If the machine can do that, I'll sit." Aaron didn't make a guarantee. He just put out his hand. He accepted it and got up, and for the first time, his eyes looked their age. The walls of the chamber shook slightly as the city tightened its grip. Like frost, a thin wash of static crawled across the concrete. Lysa read the signal on her wrist. The council had set up a new field called quietus, which was a counter-hum that blocked out interval frequencies and flooded the brain back to productive wakefulness. Hadion's mouth became thinner. They found a name, he added. They always find a name. Aaron glanced at the interface and the crown, which was still warm from a human head, and felt sure, clean, and nearly weightless. He answered, "Names won't help them. This isn't a war of slogans." Lysa said, "It never was. But they don't know any other way." Once the doors trembled. A knock that wasn't a knock, 3 beats, then 2. Lysa raised a panel and looked down the hall. The big soldier stood there without a helmet on, his face lined and his eyes inflamed from years of being forced to stay awake. He held his hands out in front of him to show that they were empty. Without the armor, he looked smaller, like the city had peeled away a layer and found a person behind. He answered, "I'm not here to make arrests. I'm here because my daughter stares at the wall and breathes like she's drowning when nothing's wrong. I spotted your machine on the square. I could feel it. I can't tell my unit why I didn't shoot. I can't figure it out." Aaron looked him in the eye without saying anything. Lysa moved out of the way. The soldier walked in, gazed at the interface like a thirsty man looks at a well, and then turned away in shame for seeking what he had been taught to deem weak. Hadion remarked calmly, "We don't put enemies first. We put kids." The soldier nodded, agreeing with the rule as if it had always been the law. He let out a breath. "Then show me how to keep the door safe." Aaron gave him a hidden baton and pointed to the hinge that was jammed on the left. The soldier got into position. Aaron went back to the interface and the line of people who had stopped pretending they didn't need it. Night, which was just a word in reality 612, swept over the open edge of the stadium like a sluggish hand. The council worked on quietus and put new charges on those who breathed around intervals high up in the sky. The river conveyed words between arches where the city met itself in reflected lights. 10 minutes changed 10 lives in the storage facility, then 10 more. Aaron leaned against the casing and let the hum fill him up. He didn't feel brave. He felt right, which was unusual. He thought about the letters he had seen in the sky during the break, and the sentence that wouldn't go away. He said it softly so that only he could hear it. "Reality 612 is not your fate." The door creaked. The new guard shifted his weight, and the interface breathed like a sick animal, waiting for the next head and the next and the next, until the city learned a word that would outlive every creed it had engraved into steel. The stadium bay smelled like metal and dust, and the ghost of thousands of footsteps from when Orialis still had clapping. It was now a safe place. The interface pulsed like a star trapped in the middle of the floor, with people circling it and waiting for their turn. With each break, they became quieter, steadier, and more human. Aaron stood at the edge and watched as people's faces changed in small but clear ways. Shoulders dropped with relaxation, mouths relaxed, and eyes sparkled. There was nothing dramatic about it, yet every move went against the ideology that was engraved into steel above the city. The soldier who had formerly fought him was now guarding the door. He appeared older without his helmet, yet his hands were solid. He looked down the hall like a guy who has finally made a choice for himself. Aaron didn't want to know his name. Sometimes just making a choice was enough. The city above kept going. Productivity numbers flashed over public walls. Buses and trains rumbled, and council broadcasts played their chants over and over. But there were more and more whispers underneath. People who have touched the interface talked in a different way. They didn't yell for revolt. They didn't wave weapons about. They only said, "I felt quiet." That statement got around faster than the council's threats. Lysa brought back news from scouts at the higher tiers. The council has sent quietus to all of Sector 7. People are calling it a stabilizing hum. People straighten up straighter, yet their eyes look hollow. They've turned stillness into a weapon. Aaron made a face. "A fake silence." "Yes," she said. "It's not rest. It's repression." Minds were dull enough to do what they were told. Hadion looked at the interface with squinted eyes. "Then we're not simply giving help. We are giving you the truth." Aaron didn't say anything. He thought about the letters in the dream sky and how heavy they were. 612 is not destiny. The city would stop shaking if quietus extended far enough. It would turn to stone. Aaron strolled alone through the bay that night, or what passed for night in a world where people couldn't sleep. The interface sparkled softly, and little particles floated inside like stars moving about in the sky. He put his hand on the glass. Images came back. A river under the stars, a door opening, and a child's laugh. The sights were closer now, sharper, like reality 612 was leaning in on him. He pushed away, breathing hard. The dream residue wasn't a delusion. It was contact. The soldier at the door softly cleared his throat. "Historian." Aaron turned around. The soldier responded, "They'll come back. This time, not just drones. Units. Heavy. I know. Then make a quick choice. You can't keep running away. They will destroy this area and everyone in it." Aaron stared at him. "Why are you telling me this?" The soldier's eyes didn't move. "Because my daughter hasn't said a word in a year. If this is real and it gives her back even one word, I'll burn my uniform before I let them touch it." Aaron nodded slowly. "Then stand with us when it happens." The soldier's jaw got stiff. "Already I am." The next day, Mara, the technician who had driven them from the marketplace, told them what had happened. She got in via the tunnels with grease on her hands and a sense of urgency in her eyes. "They're shutting down districts. 9 and 10 are on lockdowns. Anyone who even whispers intervals gets taken in. Some people don't come back." The room was quiet. Finally, Lisa remarked, "They're scared." Mara said, "They're mad. Afraid comes later." Before he said anything, Aaron knew the decision coming. "Then we go somewhere they can't get rid of us." People. Clear. People say it's fraud since no one has seen it with their own eyes. We keep showing them until they can't forget it. Lisa's mouth became a line. "That will kill people." "It already costs them," Aaron remarked. "Every fall in the street. Every youngster is disappearing. Every worker disturbing the silence. The cost is being paid no matter what we do." Hadian raised his hand and spoke in a serious tone. "There's no turning back if you do this. You won't be a historian anymore. You will be a target." Aaron stared at the interface and heard the patient hum. It wasn't a machine. It was something older and necessary. "Then let history find someone else. My work is here." The soldier moved up. "Where should we take it?" Aaron looked him in the eye. "The center of the city. The plaza of the Continuum." People in the room were shocked. The council's shrine was that square, where their mantras were engraved into steel pillars and where their transmissions were strongest. To bring an interface there was death, but the word was already getting around, carried by sighs and murmurs. Aaron knew that a whisper could only achieve so much. A city needed to hear stillness with its own ears. The strategy came together quickly. Mara would take care of the ride. Lisa would plan safe routes. If it came down to it, the soldier and a few volunteers would use their bodies to protect the interface. Hadian would stay below and make more devices, for once one was seen, 10 would be needed. Aaron sat with the interface one last time before they left. The crown touched his temples and he closed his eyes. 10 minutes went by. The dream sky burned brighter than ever when he opened his eyes. The letters changed into new words. "The waking people live. The dreaming goes on." He said the phrase as they lifted the interface onto the van. The route ahead was narrow, and the city was getting ready for battle. But this time, Aaron didn't feel like a man fighting a machine. He felt like a man carrying a seed into stone and daring it to break. The doors of the van closed. The engine roared. Orialis waited, blind and bright, ready to eat them. Aaron put his palm on the casing and said to himself, "Reality 612 is not destiny." They drove toward the center of the sleepless globe, bringing silence to the core of all the noise. The van moved through Orialis like a shadow attempting to outrun the sun. Mara held the wheel tight, looked in the mirrors, and kept her hands steady even though sirens were going off somewhere beyond the next block. Lisa crouched down next to the interface and pushed her palm on the casing to feel its hum. She checked every pulse. Aaron sat across from her, watching the light through the fractures in the steel shell. His heart pounded in time with hers. They were going to the Continuum Plaza, which was the council's stage and the city's center. Bringing the interface there was like attacking the religion itself. The inscriptions cut into steel, the banners that burned above every street, and the motto that was whispered into kids' ears, "Eternity belongs to the awake." Aaron's chest felt heavy with it. The plaza wasn't a good place to get lost. It was the altar of a god who never slept. The soldier, who was still nameless and quiet, sat near the back door with a rifle across his knees. His armor had no insignia on it, and the black paint had faded during the years of patrol. He looked like any other enforcer in Orialis, but his eyes were peculiar. They were looking for more than just orders. Aaron abruptly added, "You should tell us your name." The soldier shook his head. "Names are for when this is done." "Fair," Aaron remarked in a quiet voice. The van shook as it drove over a broken part of the road. Mara swore under her breath, then turned off the lights and rolled them into a service tunnel. There was condensation on the walls. There were pipes all over the roof, like the veins of a giant buried in the ground. They were quiet for a few minutes as they traveled. Mara then whispered, "There are patrols up ahead. The grid is getting tighter." "Choices?" Lysa asked. "Two. Go back, which is what they want. Or push through and they'll fight." Aaron remarked, "We can't go back." Mara nodded. "Then hold on tight." The van sped up. 2 drones hovered at the entrance to the tunnel, their red lenses flashing. The van came right at them. As they scratched the roof, metal screeched. Sparks fell down. The soldier opened the door and shot 3 times quickly. 1 drone lost control and crashed into the wall. The other one ran away in a cloud of smoke. Mara didn't stop. The van exploded into the wide night. Orialis extended above them like a galaxy of towers. The light from a million windows made the horizon white. The Hall of Continuum, which was shaped like a ring, was on top of the Continuum Plaza, which was in the middle. Its spires looked like glass fingers. It was brighter than anything else in the city, as if it wanted people to disbelieve it. "They'll know we're coming," Lysa remarked. "Yes, they already do," Aaron said. The soldier put a new round in his gun. "Then we go fast." The vehicle drove over the freight lanes, swerving between trucks that were stuck because of lockdown rules. The sirens got louder. There were roadblocks ahead, and metal barriers sprang from the earth like teeth. Mara started the engine. The van hit the first barricade at an angle, and the metal screamed as it bent. The alarms went off. People ran away, yelling. Every screen echoed with the council's voice. "Devices on the way that aren't allowed. You have to follow the rules. People stay still. Disruptors will be stopped." The plaza was big. Big open white stone that shines under a lot of neon signs. There were already soldiers on its edge, their black armor shining. There was a net of drones in the sky. The council's creed glowed on the walls of the hall. Aaron could feel the city itself waiting, anxious and breathless. Mara hit the brakes firmly. The van came to a stop near the edge of the plaza. The soldier and Lysa ripped open the doors. They all pulled the interface out together, and its brilliance shone through the steel like a sun trapped inside. People in the crowd gasped. "Form around it," Lysa yelled. Volunteers moved to protect the interface with their bodies. Mara joined them with a wrench in her hand. The soldier stood tall at the front, aiming his rifle at the line that was coming at him. Aaron stepped up on the casing itself, his chest rising and falling, and his eyes were riveted on the banners above. The council's voice echoed through the hall. Deep and unforgiving, Historian Dylan, "Give up right now. Weakness is not needed in this city. Your deception will not affect Reality 612. Aaron's voice got louder, yet it was still raw. "This is not a scam. This is the truth. 10 minutes of quiet, 10 minutes to fix it. You label it weak because you're afraid of it, but you can't undo what you've already felt." The interface pulsed. The hum got deeper. The soldiers moving forward across the plaza stopped for half a step. The audience moved closer, quiet, and waited. "Intervals," Aaron said, and the word lit up. "Not sleep. Don't give up. The right of all people to breathe." The interface was on fire. Light streamed through the cracks, giving the plaza a glow that was softer than the council's hard white. It spread across the throng, the troops, and even the walls of the hall. The hum spread out like a tide, slowly and patiently. The faces altered. A woman in the front dropped her luggage and started to cry. A youngster held his father's hand and told him about a river he had never seen. Some soldiers even moved about nervously, their guns shaking. The stillness wasn't empty. It was fullness. Every mind was at ease. Every loop was untangled and every crack was fixed for a moment. The council's creed flashed over them. The song "Eternity Belongs to the Awake" broke up into static. For a heartbeat, the word "intervals" took its place. Everyone in the crowd gasped at once. Then the hall yelled. The walls shook with energy. The council let quietus out. A harsh, jagged wave of fake noise hit the plaza with a lot of force. People swayed and held their heads. The soldiers got back into position. The interface shook. Its light flickered. "Hold it steady," Lysa yelled. Aaron pushed both fists against the case and his ribs hurt so much. He shut his eyes. The dream sky came back and it was clearer than ever. The letters burnt, but the people who were awake lived. "The dreaming go on," he said the phrase out loud. The interface surged, and the light became so bright that it blinded the plaza. Quietus broke against it like glass in a fire. The two frequencies hit each other, ripping the air apart. The banners above broke apart into static. First, the soldiers broke. A few of them dropped their guns. Others took off their helmets and held their ears. The throng yelled one word, louder than the council's machines and the city itself. Intervals! The noise shook the plaza. Aaron knelt down, still holding the case. He couldn't see clearly. He noticed people coming forward and using their bodies to protect the interface. Lysa pulled him up, her expression angry. The soldier shot into the skies, sending drones crashing down in flames. Mara hit an enforcer who was charging with her wrench. The plaza was no longer the council's holy place. It had turned into a battleground, and the first win was silence. But the hall stood tall and bright white over everything else, and Aaron knew that this was just the start. The council would not give up. They would set fire to the city before letting breaks take hold. But for a moment, Reality 612 shook with a new truth. Not being awake all the time, not noise that lasts forever, quiet, and once it was heard, quiet could never be forgotten. There was a lot of smoke in the plaza, like a second sky. The interface shone in the middle, and its hum stayed steady even after the attack. People still crowded around it, like moths to a flame in the winter, not moving even as soldiers regrouped at the outskirts of the plaza. The slogans on the banners above kept switching between static and stillness, trying to make themselves heard again. The council was still in charge, but for the first time in hundreds of years, their claims didn't seem to be true. Aaron was out of breath and standing with one hand on the interface. His ribs hurt where the gun had hit him before, and his vision swam from being tired. Yet his thinking was clearer than it had ever been. The crowd around him moved in a way he had never seen in Orialis before. They weren't marching, chanting, or making anything. They were taking a break. It was the most risky thing they could do. Lysa kept sliding between them, her voice low but strong. Don't worry. Stay close to each other. Take a breath. Don't let them break you up. She spoke with authority, the kind that comes from belief rather than command. People did what they were told because they wanted to, not because they were afraid. The soldier, who still didn't have a name or any insignia, waited at the edge of the plaza with his rifle ready. He was tense, but he never touched the trigger unless he had to. He was stuck between two universes, seeing the soldiers move forward and the mob behind him. After that, the Hall of Continuum spoke, not a person, but the structure itself with concealed mechanisms making its voice louder. Cold, flawless, and without mercy. People of Reality 612, you are being tricked. The historian has given you pieces of other universes. He brings weakness that looks like relief. Step aside and get back to work, or otherwise get corrected. The voice was everywhere, pushing at their heads and wrapping around their thoughts. People in the crowd changed their minds. Aaron felt the pressure like a chain getting tighter around his chest. Quietus was no longer just a hum. It was words that had been turned into weapons and hidden in the city's soundtrack. Aaron climbed onto the interface casing, even though his ribs hurt. His voice was loud and clear, even above the noise of the machines. You call it deception because you're afraid of what you can't change. Take a look at yourself. You are still for the first time. You hear your own ideas for the first time without their noise. That isn't being weak. That is power. The voice of the council got louder. Being quiet is death. Staying awake is the key to staying alive. He lies to you. Then why are you shaking? Aaron yelled back and pointed to the walls where their slogans were stuttering. Why are your soldiers taking so long? If it's so unimportant, why do you battle so hard to stop a single moment of peace? You are scared because you know this is true. The words broke through the noise. Not cheers, but subtle, steady, insistent murmurs came from the throng. Intervals. Intervals. The whisper spread again, faster than instructions and terror. The troops at the edge of the plaza raised their guns. The nameless one moved between them and the interface, pointing his gun at their own friends. Stand down, he yelled. You feel it too. Don't act like you don't. Nobody shot for a second. Then the hall lit up in white. A wave of energy hit the plaza, knocking many down. The interface got darker but stayed on. Aaron hit the casing hard and gasped for air. As rubble dropped from a broken banner above, Lysa pulled a youngster out of the way. Back! Mara yelled and dragged a hurt man into cover with a wrench in her hand. They'll bring the whole hall down if they have to. Aaron made himself stand up. No, they need the hall. They need their place of worship. They will destroy themselves if they destroy it. They'd burn the world before they gave up, Lysa said angrily. The soldier pulled Aaron close. His voice was low and intense. You need to move the interface. Next, they'll go after it. Everything dies with it if it breaks. Aaron's throat got constricted. If we move it, the plaza will fall back under their voice. It only matters here, the soldier answered. Then you need something stronger. Aaron had never seen his eyes flame with such conviction before. Something louder than their beliefs. You have made them quiet. Now give them a vision. Aaron stopped moving. The sky of dreams. The letters. The visions that had been bothering him since his first break. Could the interface show that? Could it show everyone what he saw? He put both hands on the crown and ignored the burning feeling of electricity in his flesh. Lysa, can it send forth signals? Her eyes got bigger. Not made for it. Yes, but if we put too much weight on the crown, it will send the interval images into the air. But it might kill you. Then it kills me, Aaron remarked. Do it! Lisa's jaw was tight, but she moved quickly. She rewired the wires and her fingers sparked. Hold on when I say so. No matter what you see, don't let go. The council's clamor got louder and more frantic. Obey, citizens. This man will change your world. Step away and you'll be safe. Reality 612 is not destiny, Aaron yelled back. His voice broke, but the words got through. The throng echoed them, first with 100 voices, then with 1,000. Not fate! Not fate! Lysa hit the switch with her hand. The interface lit up. A column of light sprang up, piercing the night. The crown burst white, burning Aaron's temples. His eyesight broke and then came back together. The dream sky opened up over the plaza. Not just for him, but for everyone else. Stars turned into rivers. Unseen winds blew through fields of grass. Mountains turned into paths of light. People's faces turned into stars, and stars turned into sentences. Everyone in the city looked up and witnessed what he had seen in silence. The letters spelled out, "The awake survive." The dreams go on, people gasped. Crying broke. Some people laughed and others cried. For the first time, Orialis had a dream while awake. The council's voice yelled, "No. Hallucinations. Lies. Fake worlds." But the scream shattered, faint against the view above. The troops let go of their guns. A few of them got down on their knees. Even the drones had trouble, their lenses flashing in uncertainty. Aaron held onto the crown, his body on fire and his head full of light. He felt his thoughts spilling out into the plaza, not as words but as pictures, recollections that weren't his own, dreams oozing through from places where sleep still existed. The multitude was inside them now, and every person could taste what had been taken. Intervals were no longer a whisper. They were like the sky. The overload broke. The light on the interface went out as it got darker. Aaron fell to his knees and smoke started to come out of his flesh. Lysa caught him before he hit the floor. "Aaron!" He had a rough voice. "Did they see it?" "They saw," she said softly, her tears making clear lines down her face. There was no noise in the plaza, no alarms, no catchphrases, just thousands of people standing there, with their eyes wide open and their minds shaken open. The council's flags had lost their color. The hall stood tall and silent, its voice gone. The soldier put down his gun and stared at Aaron. "You just gave them back something they didn't know they had lost." Aaron was able to smile a little. Not gave. Remembered. And in homes, factories, and buildings that never went dark, people murmured a new word across Reality 612. It wasn't a sign of revolt or defiance. It was the truth. Intervals. The belief of a world without sleep had broken. The dreaming had come back. And nothing the council did could make people forget about a sky full of stars that couldn't be real. The plaza held its breath when the sky folded back in on itself. The interface glowed dimly, like a coal instead of a star. Aaron's mouth tasted like metal and smoke. Lysa put one hand on his shoulder and the other on the casing to feel the crown's temperature. The soldier looked over the roofs. The hall was quiet and the flags were still. For a moment, Reality 612 sounded like a city that had finally learned how to listen. The heart stopped beating. Sirens woke up at the boundaries of the district. They weren't loud, but they sounded like a machine turning a bigger gear. The hall's ring lit up by floodlights. The doors in the spires opened, and lines of armored individuals came out. They moved together like one being. The council had lost its voice, but not its teeth. "Back," Lysa said. "We can't hold this ground twice." She talked to the throng without yelling. "Help someone who can't walk if you can. Carry if you can." People moved, and they were surprised at how swiftly they followed a sentence that wasn't an order. Mara slid up next to them with grease on her cheek and blazing eyes. "Roads are closed, but the water spine is open." "They didn't lock it after the last chase," Lisa stated. "The interface can't handle another broadcast," Aaron said. "It doesn't need to." His throat felt like it was made of glass. "It did the one thing they can't take away. We take it to a place where it can't be found and manufacture more." Hadion's voice came over Lysa's wristband, calm, yet with static at the edges. The lower bays are open. We have started to make copies. OI-8 to OI-12 are almost done, but the grid is getting tighter. If they turn Quietus up all the way, we'll be matching a deluge with buckets. Aaron swallowed despite the pain. Then we don't fit. We break the dam. He stared at the hall. It was like a crown that had forgotten the head it served. We take the core. Lisa looked where he was looking. Inside the hall, the soldier responded. They keep the Quietus generator there. Central oscillator, connected to the city's cognitive grid. Stop it. And their voice really breaks. Mara blew air through her teeth. That ring has 4 layers of security and enough scanners to see inside your head. Then we don't go through the shells, Aaron remarked. We go under. He pointed to the rock that was under their feet. The hall was built on top of ancient foundations. The original Continuum building was built on tunnels that were already there. 100 years ago, historians made maps of them. I looked over the plans. The city buried them, but it never got rid of them. Mara smiled. I like under. Lisa stared at the interface and then at Aaron. We can't take it inside. We don't, Aaron said. He put his hand on the case. The hum was quiet but continuous. The interface leaves. We don't carry the machine, we carry the memories. The soldier nodded once, and the decision was made. I lead the way in. We take 4. Lysa, Aaron, me, and someone who knows how to get through tunnels. Mara hit the side of her wrench. I'm tunnels. Lisa moved quickly, passing off responsibility as if it were something she could touch. She tapped 3 volunteers and the nameless soldier into a rapid diamond around the interface, then turned to the throng. South, evacuate to the river spine. Move together. Don't run. Take a breath. If you hear quiet as rising hum, any sound, make your own noise. It dulls it. Heads shook. People hummed, first uncertain, then sure, like when you remember an old tune without words. Aaron strolled to the edge of the plaza and then turned around. He saw the woman who had cried when the glow touched her, the youngster who had spoken about a river he had never seen, the gray-haired engineer with grease on his cuffs, and the vendor who had tossed fruit at a drone and laughed. They had never slept before. They had dreamed with their eyes open tonight. He nodded to each of them once, and then turned to the hall's shadow. They snuck into a service alley and located an access grate that was half-welded and old enough that the cataloging drones had forgotten about it. Mara exhibited a tool that she wasn't permitted to have, and the welds let go. They went down a concrete throat that tasted like metal and damp. The tunnels remembered to stop. They kept the cold in the same manner that the surface kept the light in. A long time ago, someone painted numerals on the walls and arrows that didn't point anywhere. Mara walked as if she were listening to the floor. The soldier kept an eye on the corners. Lysa counted her steps in her head. Aaron retained the map in his head and used the way the air flowed to check it. Aaron remarked, the core is under the inner ring. We need the conduit chamber that goes straight to the oscillator. We can send a surge or cut it from there. Lysa replied, we don't have a surge. We don't have a cut. Aaron remarked, we have something they don't. An interval frequency. Lysa looked at him. You want to give the core an antidote. Not an antidote. A reminder. Not noise is the opposite of quietus. It's really silent. The grid will convey repair instead of suppression if we can phase match the interface's hum and send it through their oscillator. Mara laughed once, shocked by optimism. Change their megaphone into a lullaby. It's not sleep, Aaron replied. I know, Mara responded. It's mercy. They got to a sealed bulkhead with a wheel that was rusty. The soldier got ready and pulled. The wheel screeched and then moved. Cold air from the opposite side hit them, harsher and full of ozone. They went through the hall's bottom. The hall woke up even more above them, sensing the loss of control like heat. The tunnels here were cleaner, with steel instead of concrete and sensors that blinked like bored eyes. They stopped when the soldier lifted his fist. A scanning beam moved over the entrance to the hallway, then went on, then came back and walked on. They went to the right while it drifted to the left. They found the conduit room by the sound, a low turbine thrum that made bones shake. Cables as thick as torsos curved into a round casing with the Continuum insignia on it. A maintenance console blinked with permissions that Aaron had never been given before. The soldier asked Lisa, "Can you open it?" "I can make it forget that it's closed," she claimed, and then she got to work. Her fingers slid across the console like someone waking up a kid. The lock fought back like a calm animal. Then it let out a sigh. The housing came loose with a hiss. Ozone filled the room. Coils fit perfectly inside the cylinder, buzzing the city's fake silence. Aaron stepped forward after looking at Lisa. He put both of his hands on the metal. It felt warm, like skin. He said, "Give me your wristband." Lisa took off the band and gave it to her. Aaron opened a panel and attached the leads to the coils. He said Hadeon to the air. "Get ready in interval seed." Hadeon's voice was weak but there. "I can send you a 9-second packet at OI9's current level." "It's not harsh. It won't hurt anyone," Aaron said. "We're not breaking heads. We're breaking a machine." Lisa grimaced at the coils. 9 seconds won't cross the grid," Aaron responded. "It doesn't have to. It just has to start a sound that the city will like." "Cities don't like," the soldier said. "People make them do it." He thought about the field he had never been to, the writings he had read in a sky he had never seen, the child who had sent a message via a mind that was falling apart, and the soldier who had taken off his helmet and asked to guard the door. He thought of Reality 612 as something that still had a choice. He said, "Hadeon, send the seed when I say so." There were footsteps in the hallway outside. The soldier turned to cover the door. 2, then 4, then more shadows slid beyond the doorway. Lisa and Aaron looked at each other. They both knew there wouldn't be a second chance. Aaron closed his eyes, put his hands flat on the coil, and breathed until the hum of the machine broke into strands. He could feel quietus under his hands, that fragile copy of repose. He discovered the spaces between its teeth. He thought about the interface's smooth tide. "Mark," he said. The bracelet in his hand throbbed once. The 9-second seed glided inside the coil like a small boat going down a swift river. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the turbine thrum went up half a tone, then another. The coil's warmth changed from heat to something like sunlight trapped in metal. Aaron kept his breathing steady. He hummed very softly, like a parent does to calm down a child's mind. Lisa offered her voice without being asked, which was a second thread. "Mara is third." The soldier was the last, low and harsh. The coil heard. The door burst open. 4 enforcers came through, their visors lowered. The soldier moved like a door in a storm. Instead of meeting force with force, he diverted it. 2 fell. Mara hit a visor with her wrench and the visor broke. Lisa ducked a baton and hit a knee with her heel. Aaron stayed still. The seed would fail if he removed his hands off the coil. The walls became quiet. The hall, knowing they were being attacked, tried to drown them all. The fake stillness scratched their heads with claws. Aaron clutched the coil and hummed louder. He saw the plaza with the crowd's faces turned up and the letters in the sky saying, "The awake survive. The dreams go on." He saw endurance as a way to get over things. The coil caught fire. The hum under Aaron's hands turned into something human. The resonance jumped to the next ring of the oscillator, and then to the next. The LEDs on the console changed from red to white. The hall shook. Something big changed channels over them. Hadeon's voice whispered over the band and the word was full with awe. "It's moving." On the plaza, where people had spread out into alleys and troops had formed lines again, a wind blew through that no one could feel but everyone could sense. The dead flags did not wake up. The air did. The grid that had conveyed quietus over Orialis now had a different tone, one that was softer than order and steadier than terror. Kids tilted their heads for no reason at all. The workers grabbed a lever and put it down. A medic paused with a needle and chose a more gentle dose. The city's heart didn't stop beating, but it stopped trying to crush its own. The last enforcer in the conduit chamber tripped, dropped his baton, and took off his helmet like it was too much for him to carry. He slipped down the cliff, breathing heavily like a man who has climbed too high. The soldier held his rifle up, then let it down when he saw something in the other man's eyes that didn't need any orders. Lisa looked at the console. She muttered, "We did it. We changed the frequency." "Wait," Aaron said. His hands were shaking. The coil was hot enough to hurt. It started with 9 seconds. "The remainder is up to the city." Mara heard the new hum. "It's making a choice," she remarked. "Can't you hear it?" Again, boots thudded in the hall. This time, it's heavier. A team, maybe 2. The soldier looked at his magazine and then the door. Lisa looked through the console for a lock that they could fix. There wasn't one. Aaron gazed at the coil and then at his scorched hands. "Go," he said. "Everyone." "No," Lisa said. Aaron remarked. "If they take any of us, it should be me. I'm the one they want to hurt. You produce more of this sound. The interface is a tree. The frequency is a forest." The soldier shook his head. "I don't leave people behind as trophies." "Then don't," Aaron responded. "Get me out after it holds." The team made a turn. Shadows grew longer. and firearms were ready. The soldier stepped into the doorway, which was like a single human hinge on a machine. Lysa put her wristband in Aaron's hand and curled his fingers around it. "Call the river if the hum stops," she replied. He didn't inquire what that meant. He nodded. The coil changed one more tone, like a vocalist finally finding the right key for the song. The lights in the conduit chamber stopped flickering. The hall groaned from a place deeper than concrete, as if someone had finally realized that an old choice was wrong. Aaron raised his hands. The metal scorched his flesh in a way that felt clean and didn't hurt. He tried to get up but couldn't. Lysa picked him up and put his arm over her shoulders. Mara chose the opposite side. The soldier pushed them toward the old tunnel, shooting short, accurate bursts that weren't meant to kill, just to buy time. They slipped back through the bulkhead, turned the wheel and ran the map backward, with their feet remembering what their minds sought to forget. The hall boomed behind them, but it sounded thinner now, like wind blowing through a building that had lost its breath. They got to the grate in the alley. The plaza had turned into smaller rooms, stores, residences, and corners. The city had pulled its claws back. Everything was broken. Everything was changed. Aaron leaned against the wall of the alley and chuckled once because the hum in his bones sounded like the hum in the street. It wasn't sleep. It wasn't giving up. It was a room. Reality 612 did not fall. It bent. Like metal that had been heated enough to shape. It remembered how it used to be and took on a new contour. The council would come back with new names, weapons, and rules. The hall would light its flags and make its voice louder. But they didn't own the whole grid anymore. "Back to the river," Lysa murmured. "We finish what we started." Finally, the soldier stared at Aaron like a man telling a friend his name. He didn't say it. He didn't have to. It was the glance that did it. They went into the hum. The city went with them. Reality 612 learned how to stop without dying under the lights that never went out. The river spine took them away from the hall. The city above was still shaking from what they had done. Screens flashed and stuttered, slogans didn't reload, and the sound of quietus faded away across the districts like a tide that didn't want to go back. People walked around the streets not out of terror, but out of confusion, touching walls as if they didn't know them anymore. A few people cried. Some people laughed. Some people just sat there, staring at their hands as if they had just realized they had always belonged to someone else. As the skiff cut through the Black Sea, Aaron leaned against its hull. His hands were sore and blistered from the coil burning him. It hurt to breathe, but the sound of the seed still resonated in his thoughts. The hum was now a part of him, deeper than blood. He had carried history before. Now he was carrying the future. Lysa sat next to him and didn't say anything for a long time. The soldier stood at the back, rifle over his chest, and looked around the banks. Mara drove the engine, and the old exhaust from the skiff cast half shadow and half fire on her face. Lysa finally said something. "They'll get their voice back. The council never gives up." "They don't have to," Aaron remarked. His voice was harsh. "We don't need them to leave. We just need them to be weaker than the memory of a dream." Lysa said softly. Aaron looked at her. "Not a dream, a decision. People can never go back to the cacophony once they know what stillness is and how it feels. The council can howl forever, but it will always sound empty now." The soldier changed his position and watched the skyline go away. "They'll put in more effort, weapons that are quieter and sharper. They're going to make examples." "They already do," Mara said under her breath. "But examples can go both ways." The skiff glided into a secret dock that Mara had promised would be in the ancient park. Above them, false trees made of steel and polymer climbed against the neon sky. They were left over from a failed endeavor to make Orialis green for tourists who never came. Roots of metal twisted through stone that had broken. Dozens of families waited between them. Kids held onto homemade toys and looked around with wide eyes. Elders sat on benches, their cheeks taut with tiredness. When Aaron got to the dock, everyone stopped talking. Not imposed silence, waiting. People had watched the telecast from the plaza. They had seen the sky of their dreams open up over their city. Now they could see him, hurt but alive, and they waited. He lifted his hands, which were scorched. "You all saw it," he continued, and his voice carried in the quiet air. "You saw what they said couldn't be done. You watched yourselves in silence. That isn't a trick, not a scam. It was always yours, but someone took it and called it weakness." A low voice began to rise. A mom went forward, holding her child's hand. "My son. He hasn't said a word since the collapse took him. He said one word tonight. He said intervals." Her voice broke. "What should I do now?" Aaron got down on one knee in front of the lad. The child's eyes were glazed over, yet they weren't empty. He touched Aaron's hand and traced the burns with his finger. Then he said the word again. Aaron's vision was blurry from weeping. He looked up at the mom. You keep that word. You protect it. You give it to him every day until it takes root. That's what you do now. The soldier straightened up straighter and looked at the youngster. For the first time, Aaron thought he might say his name, but he didn't say anything. Maybe he was conserving it. Lisa's band played Hadian's voice, which was thin with interference but steady. The copies are real. The hum of OI-12 is greater than that of the original. We can spread them if we can move them. How many? Lisa wanted to know. Hadian said, That's enough. Enough to plant seeds in every district. Aaron swayed on his feet and closed his eyes. He was almost out of strength, but his will was stronger than his wounds. Then that's what we do. We don't fight the army of the council. We don't battle their robots. We fight their noise. We put quiet in every nook till the whole city hums against them. Mara smiled furiously. Intervals in homes, intervals in markets, and intervals underground. They won't know who has touched and who hasn't. They'll try to pull it out. And by then, it will be all over the place. Finally, the soldier spoke. His voice was low yet strong. And when they come to burn us out, we'll be ready, not with fire, with silence. The throng breathed as one, making a sound that was heavier than a cheer or chant. Agreement. Night, as it was in a world where people couldn't sleep, stretched across Orialis. The towers kept burning, but amid neglected parks and hidden docks, something new started to grow. The kids hummed to themselves, copying the sound of the interface. For the first time, workers stopped between shifts and closed their eyes without feeling bad. Elders remembered bits of old phrases like dream, rest, and mercy, and they spoke them out loud. The council would hit again, and this time it would be worse. Aaron was aware of it. Lisa knew it. Everyone in the dock knew it. But tonight, for the first time, they didn't have full control over Reality 612. Aaron leaned back against the steel roots of a fake tree and let the sound take him away. His body hurt all over, but his mind was in the skies. The letters were still there, burning. The awake survive. The dreaming go on. He whispered them to himself, and this time he didn't feel alone. He could hear the city talking to him. Intervals. And in the middle of the world that never sleeps, silence started to grow. Orialis City never went dark. Towers still glowed with light, banners still flashed with slogans, and drones still flew in circles through the air. But something had changed inside the city. The beat was broken. The creed didn't sound true anymore. It sounded like a demand shouted too loudly and too frequently till the voice broke. The council was aware of it. People knew it. And Aaron Dalen, who was scorched and tired, knew it best of all. The copies had been planted. OI-12 and its siblings were spread out across the districts, hidden in markets, disguised in workplaces, and smuggled under the seats of vehicles. Wherever they hummed, the sound got quieter. Not the hard quiet of quietus, but the soft hum of intervals that healed instead of hurt. The tone of their voices came from their families. As they lifted and welded, workers hummed it to themselves. Kids sang it again and over again, even though they didn't comprehend it. And the council was furious. The Hall of Continuum came back to life with a shout, its shattered banners fixed, and its voice sharper. Citizens of Reality 612, it said loudly from all the speakers, you are infected. You are being lied to. This historian is not going to save you. He is your end. Wake up again. Don't accept the weakness of gaps. But the people didn't move like they used to. Some people did as they were told. A lot of people acted like they did. But more and more people looked up at the sky and thought about the dream Aaron had shown them. They remembered words that were inscribed in the stars, and they said to each other quietly and defiantly, intervals. The council fought back. There were twice as many patrols. More arrests are happening. Quietus frequencies swamped and blocked off whole blocks. But someone has already touched an interface in every sealed block. The suppression affected minds that had known real silence. It didn't stay as it used to. People staggered, but they didn't fall. Some others even chuckled at the hum since they could tell the difference between true calm and fake stillness. They were scared because the council's power was fading. Mara, Lisa, and the soldier who still had no name led Aaron across the city like a shadow. His body was covered with wounds from the coils, and his hands were scorched and sore, but his voice was calm. People listened to him no matter where he went. He didn't have to dispute or explain anymore. He just had to remind them of how they had felt before. He stood on the hood of a broken-down car at a transport yard. They will tell you that silence is a sign of weakness, he told the workers who had gathered downstairs. But tell me, did you feel weak when the hum touched you? Or did you feel complete? Whole, the audience whispered. He put his burning hands on the cold steel of a machine on the manufacturing floor. They will tell you that intervals are lies, but if you touch them, they break. This does not break. It gets better. Is that a lie? The workers shook their heads and muttered, no. And a bunch of kids followed him along a small lane that was only lit by the light from the skyscrapers above. They were humming the tune of the interface. Aaron smiled despite the pain and said, keep it alive. Now it is yours. The movement was no longer his, Lisa's, or Hadion's machines. It was the city's. The council was getting desperate. They used their last weapon, the Oblivion Protocol. Drones flew through the night, sending out signals that weren't meant to block off memories but to destroy them. Memories were confused, intervals were drowned out, and histories were rebuilt in real time. As the signal went through, buildings shook. People staggered through the streets, holding their heads and blanking out their eyes. Aaron felt it too. A pain like blades in his head. For a moment, the sky in the dream flickered. The lettering got blurry. The Awake Live. The dreaming is over. He dropped to his knees and gasped. They're trying to kill us. Lisa took hold of his arm. Then hold on to something. Anchor us all. How? His vision swam. The soldier bent down, put a hand on Aaron's shoulder, and finally spoke what Aaron had been waiting to hear. With your name. Mine, not yours. You are the anchor. You showed them. You take it. Aaron's chest rose and fell. He shut his eyes. He felt for the hum that was deep inside him, the seed he had carried since his first break. He took a breath and whispered the words again in the blackness behind his eyelids. The people who are awake live. The dreams go on. The hum said yes. Not outside. In. At first it came out of him weakly, but then it got stronger and stronger until it vibrated through his chest like a second heartbeat. The soldier added his own voice, humming softly. Lisa joined in. Mara came next. People in the streets picked it up one by one, and it sounded like a rough chorus of different tones. The Oblivion Protocol tried to drown them, but the city had already picked a different melody. And then, all of the interfaces across Orialis buzzed together. At the same time, every concealed cylinder, every fake crown, and every machine made from stolen plans came to life. Their sound waves swept through the city like a wave. The protocol broke, stopped working, and then fell apart. The city was really silent for the first time since Reality 612 had lost sleep. No catchphrases, no orders, no low hum of suppression, just silence. Days went by. The council was still there, but they couldn't speak. They went back inside the hall where guards encircled them. Their flags were ripped down as soon as they were hoisted. People stopped listening. Workers may stop when they wish to. Kids closed their eyes and hummed themselves into breaks without feeling bad. Factories slowed down but didn't halt. The end of the world did not happen. The belief had shifted. Not engraved into steel or blasted into banners, but passed from one person to another in whispers. Intervals are strength. Aaron went through the streets and felt the change like a weight being lifted. His body still hurt, and the scars on his hands were still there, but his heart was lighter. People nodded to him, sometimes to say thank you and sometimes just to show they were listening. He never stayed in one place for long. He couldn't be the only one in the movement. They all owned it. One night, while standing under the fake trees in the old park, Lisa asked him, "What now?" We broke their voice. "We have made the city quiet, but what's next?" Aaron stared out at the horizon, where the skyscrapers were still burning. "We make something we've never had before. Not being awake all the time, not dreaming all the time. In the middle, a world that remembers both. And what about the council?" "They will fight," Aaron remarked. "But they've already been forgotten. They don't own history anymore." The soldier rested on his gun and watched the kids sing by the water. He spoke in a hushed voice. "Those who endure own history." Aaron gave a small smile. "Yes. And for the first time, Reality 612 will last." He shut his eyes. He beheld the dream sky one last time in the quiet. The letters glowed brighter than ever, not as a prophecy, but as the truth inscribed into the bones of the world. The ones who are awake live. The dreams go on. And this time Aaron knew that the city would last. Not by turning its back on its sleepless past, not by praying to it, but by recalling the gift it had almost forgotten and bringing silence into a future that no longer feared the halt. Reality 612 was no longer merely a world without sleep. It was a world that was finally learning how to dream again. Welcome to Beyond the Fractals. Subscribe now and explore every reality.